Welcome back to Jforrest English. I'm Jennifer, and today you're going to improve your listening skills of fast English so you can understand native English speakers easily and the first time. Let's get started. Here are your instructions for the entire lesson. I am going to say a sentence 3 times, and you need to write down exactly what you hear in the comments. After, I'll explain what I said and the pronunciation changes that take place in fast English, and I'll explain what the expression means. Are you ready? All right, let's go. So I'll say it 3 times. My mom nitpicks like crazy. My mom nitpicks like crazy. My mom nitpicks like crazy. Did you get this one? I said my mom nitpicks like crazy. The pronunciation is clear, but if you don't know what the vocabulary means, you're not going to understand what that native speaker said. Here, our verb is to nitpick. To nitpick. What does this mean? This is when you find faults. Faults are things that you don't like or criticisms. When you find faults in details that are not important. I'm sure you know someone in your life who nitpicks, or maybe you nitpick yourself. Let's say you're with someone and you go out for dinner and the food is great, the restaurant is beautiful, the server is very friendly, but your friend finds faults in details that are not important. Your friend nitpicks. You could say, the dinner was amazing, but of course, Lindsay wasn't happy about the color of the plates or the art on the walls. Lindsay is a nitpicker. So your friend wasn't happy about the color of the plates. That is such a detail that is not important. So this is a perfect example of someone who nitpicks. But notice in my example, I said Lindsay is a nitpicker. A nitpicker. This is the noun form, and a nitpicker is simply someone who nitpicks. The original example was, my mom nitpicks like crazy. Here, like crazy, this simply means a lot or quickly. But in this context, it means a lot. So my mom nitpicks like crazy. My mom nitpicks a lot. You could also say, I worked like crazy all weekend. So you worked a lot all weekend. Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. It's okay to be picky sometimes. It's okay to be picky sometimes. It's okay to be picky sometimes. Did you get this one? I said, it's okay to be picky sometimes. For pronunciation, notice I use the contraction it's. This is the contraction of it is. It's okay. It's okay to be. But I didn't say it's okay to be picky. I said to be. So an unstressed to. It's okay to be picky. It's okay to be picky. Now don't confuse this expression to be picky with our last expression to nitpick. Yes, they both use the word pick, but they are totally different expressions. This expression, to be picky, this describes someone who has very strong preferences about what they like and don't like. For example, most young kids are picky. I don't know about you, but when I was a young kid, 5 years old, 10 years old, there were many food items that I did not eat. My diet was very simple. I had a small number of things that I liked to eat, and I had a very large number of things that I did not like to eat. So as a child, I was picky when it came to food, when it came to eating. What about you? Were you a picky eater? Were you picky about your food when you were a child? Or maybe you still are right now. Some adults are picky as well. In our original example, I said it's okay to be picky sometimes. It's okay, that means it is acceptable. It's acceptable to be picky, to have those strong preferences about what you like and don't like sometimes. For example, it's okay to be picky when it comes to a job, choosing a job. You should have very strong preferences about what you want that job to have, the qualities of that job, and that's okay. Choosing a job, choosing a house, you should definitely be picky, have very strong preferences. And choosing a spouse, maybe that's the ultimate one. You should be very picky when you choose a spouse because you're with that person for your entire life. Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. I'm beat, let's call it a day. I'm beat, let's call it a day. I'm beat, let's call it a day. Did you get this one? I said, I'm beat, let's call it a day. Let's talk about the contraction at the beginning. I'm, of course, this is I am, I'm beat, I'm beat. I'm beat, let's call it. But with linking, we're going to combine those sounds so it sounds like call it, call it. So call lit, but then we have to say it as one word. Call it, call it, call it a day, call it a day, call it a day. I'm beat, let's call it a day. To be beat, I'm beat. This means to be very tired, to be exhausted. So instead of saying I'm very tired, you can say I'm beat, we're beat, the verb to be. Now let's talk about the expression, let's call it a day. To call it a day, this is an expression used to say that you're going to stop working for the day. And you stop working for the day because you've completed enough work, you've done what you've needed to do, or simply because everyone is exhausted, everyone is beat, and it isn't productive anymore to keep working. So maybe it's 3 o'clock and technically the day ends at 5 o'clock, but everyone is so tired, everyone is beat, that they're just not thinking clearly anymore. So you might say, let's call it a day. Let's just stop working for today and we'll get a good night's sleep. We'll come back tomorrow and begin again. You could combine this with our expression like crazy, which means a lot. And you could say, we've been working like crazy all week. Let's call it a day. So again, maybe it's Friday at 2 o'clock and technically you're supposed to work until 5, but because you've been working like crazy all week, let's just call it a day and stop working now. Are you ready for another listening exercise? I'll say it 3 times. You shouldn't be so nosy. You shouldn't be so nosy. You shouldn't be so nosy. Did you get this one? I said you shouldn't be so nosy. Here, notice I said shouldn't, you shouldn't be. This is a contraction of should not, shouldn't. You shouldn't be, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be so nosy. What does this mean? To be nosy, to be nosy. This is used to say that you're interested in what other people are doing or saying when you have no right to be interested in that. You have no right to know what other people are saying or doing because it doesn't involve you. A lot of people are nosy when it comes to their significant other's cell phone. They want to know what their significant other is looking at online, who they're talking to, who they're texting with, but ultimately, you have no right to that knowledge because that's your significant other's personal privacy. So if your significant other leaves their phone and goes to the bathroom or goes to another room and you pick up the phone and you try to look at it without them knowing, you are being nosy. And that's when someone can say, you shouldn't be so nosy. Let's try this one more time. I'll say it 3 times. Being nosy is one of my pet peeves. Being nosy is one of my pet peeves. Being nosy is one of my pet peeves. Did you get this one? I said being nosy is one of my pet peeves. And now you know what nosy means, so I don't have to explain that. Being nosy. Notice how this is a gerund statement. A sentence that starts with a gerund verb, a verb in ing. Being nosy. Gerund statements are used to make general statements. So in general, being nosy is one of my pet peeves. What is a pet peeve? A pet peeve is something that especially annoys you. So there are many things that annoy you, but a pet peeve is whenever that one thing happens, it really annoys you. So I Googled this, and according to Google, the top 3 pet peeves, things that especially annoy people, the top 3 pet peeves are loud chewing. So if your coworker is, or your kids, your husband or wife, loud chewing. Is that one of your pet peeves? Number 2, according to Google, is bad manners. So if you have bad manners, it means you're not polite. So if someone holds the door open for you in North America, it's considered polite to say thank you to that person. So if you hold a door open for someone and the other person, they go right in and they don't say thank you to you, that would be an example of bad manners in North America. And the person who held the door open would be annoyed because that's one of their pet peeves. And number 3, according to Google, is clutter. Clutter describes when a room is very disorganized or messy. So if there were things all over my office, papers everywhere, things were not neat and organized, that would be clutter. What about you? What's your pet peeve? Share your pet peeve in the comments below. Now let's do an imitation exercise where you're going to imitate my pronunciation. So you're going to listen to me say the sentence, and then you are going to repeat the sentence out loud. So say the sentence out loud and try to match my pronunciation. And then you'll repeat that 3 times for each sentence. So let's do that right now. My mom nitpicks like crazy. My mom nitpicks like crazy. My mom nitpicks like crazy. It's okay to be picky sometimes. It's okay to be picky sometimes. It's okay to be picky sometimes. I'm beat, let's call it a day. I'm beat, let's call it a day. I'm beat, let's call it a day. You shouldn't be so nosy. You shouldn't be so nosy. You shouldn't be so nosy. Being nosy is one of my pet peeves. Being nosy is one of my pet peeves. Being nosy is one of my pet peeves. Did you like this lesson? Well, then make sure you like the video and let me know by leaving a comment so I know you want me to make more lessons just like this. And also remember to share your pet peeve in the comments. I'm really excited to know what your pet peeves are. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And why don't you get started with your next lesson right now?